Hello everyone and welcome to the BTerrell Group webinar, Inventory Management in the Cloud. I'm Jeanette Grand, your host for today's webinar. Before we begin, let me introduce the other presenters who are with me today. First, we have Keith Karnes, newly appointed president of BTerrell Group. Keith has years of experience with cloud-based ERP solutions, namely Intact. Next, we have our co-presenters from MSA Systems, who are the makers of QStock inventory. You see their pictures on the screen. Justin Velthoen is Supply Chain Implementation Engineer, and Kim Wilson is the Sales and Marketing Manager. Thanks for agreeing to present today, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, if you could change the screen for me, please, Justin. We've got just a few housekeeping items before we get started today. This webinar is being recorded for those who are unable to make it. In the next day or so, we'll be sending you an email containing links to both the slides presented today as well as to the recording. Feel free to forward this email along to a colleague who might be interested. You're all in listen-only mode. If you have a question, please write it in the question window to the right of your screen. Hey guys, we're getting a little bit of feedback from one of our presenters, so if you can go on mute, that'd be great. We'll be sure to get to as many questions as possible throughout and at the end of the presentation. So feel free to use that question pane. Without further ado, let me introduce Keith Karnes, president of BTerrell Group. He'll be telling us a little bit about what's happening with BTerrell, who we are, and then he'll hand it over to Justin and Ken. Keith?
Thanks so much, Jeanette. We really appreciate it, and thanks for hosting the event for us today. Also, I will we'll just go ahead and give my thanks to Justin and to Kim of MSA Systems with the QStock inventory that we're going to take a look at in just a couple of moments. And first of all here, I will just tell you a brief bit about BTerrell Group. We are an ERP group primarily, but we also provide services around CRM as well as HR systems. We are located in Dallas, Texas. We have a practice that goes across the country, though, with a primary focus in the North Texas area. Number of different products, primarily related to Intact and Sage ACPAC 300 from an ERP perspective. But we also have our sister company, Code Partners, that does a great deal of customization and coding around each of those packages to make them work more interactively. We say to go the next mile. And that's also one of the primary reasons that we're partnering on this webinar today with the QStock folks, because they do that very thing in the inventory management area to fully extend the capabilities of the ERP system. Recently with BTerrell, as Jeanette mentioned, I have been made the president of the company and am appreciative for all the folks around me that have made that possible. My expertise in the area has been, as Jeanette mentioned, around Intact, and have been in a sales and consulting role there, and now have the opportunity to work across the full lines of the company. Recently, BTerrell has been very busy working on publishing our online content so that we can keep our existing customers up to speed, as well as reach out and demonstrate the expertise in a number of areas. And just appreciate all of you as customers that have made that a possibility for us. When we talk in these webinars, we also like to introduce to those of you that are not already in the area what we call knowledge access agreements. That is the recurring service that we provide to you as customers that go around continuing benefits and the opportunity not to make each engagement a one-off engagement, rather an opportunity to talk to you on a regular recurring basis without customers feeling like you get charged each time for picking up the phone. We want that continuing relationship and the flow of information going both directions. Recently, as I said, we have had great success expanding our marketing with Intact and our sales reach. We were lucky enough to be the partner of the final quarter of the year for Intact, and have also had great activity in the beginning of the new year as well, and thank you as customers for that. Now, enough on the commercial with BTerrell. Now I'm going to turn it over to Justin and actually provide a little bit of product benefit. Justin, will you take us away and tell us all about QStock?
Excellent. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah, QStock inventory. So our major tenet is, our belief is you can't ship what you can't find. And that's one thing that we come across all the time is the customers that are coming to us usually have an issue getting the product to their customers accurately and quickly. And that's usually the issue, is being able to put it in the customer's hands exactly as they ordered it and within a decent time frame. So today what we kind of want to go over is the things that you're going to be looking at when you're investigating inventory control software, barcoding software, and those kinds of things. We know we want to definitely have your business, but we also know that not every business is a good fit for QStock inventory, and QStock inventory isn't a good fit for every business. So we want to give you guys the tool set to make those choices and to kind of show you what QStock inventory can do for you as we go through it. So Kim Wilson is our Director of Business Development. She's been around the industry for about 10 years in supply chain. She has such a huge depth of knowledge. You can really ask her just about any question, and she can dive down, or if she doesn't know it, she can connect you with the right person for that. My name is Justin Velthoen. I'm a supply chain implementation engineer. I specialize in warehousing, but I've been in there for about 13 years. Both companies that I have been working for those times were Sarbanes-Oxley compliant, so I can definitely talk to you ad nauseum about reporting and how to get all of that put together for you. And I think reporting is sort of like the secret sauce of any of the systems. Like having data is fantastic, but being able to take that data and turning it into something meaningful is really sort of the reason for the season, as it were. So as we get started, MSA Systems is the company. We're a market leader in supply chain solutions, and we also do a lot with mobility infrastructure implementation. So what that means is, while we work with the warehouse management system, we can also provide like all the other things that come along with it, the handheld, the wireless, barcode printers, the labels, kind of everything that goes and is involved with it. So we can make sure that from each piece along the road, you're getting exactly what you need to make your business work. We were founded in 1996 and have about 200 customers nationwide. QStock Inventory is one of the products that we acquired. So it's been in the industry for 10 years. It was developed for a rapidly growing small and mid-sized business market. We just last year extended Intact to become, pardon me just real quick, a complete solution for product-based industries. So we recognized Intact was kind of where a lot of people were going, and we wanted to fill out and make that inventory piece a little bit richer, be able to give the product-based business that touch at the time when they're touching the product to scan the barcode, and the barcode become that inventory accuracy and efficiency that they're looking to gain. And we're trying to help businesses that are in a rapid growth adopt the necessary tools and best practices. So if this sounds like something like your business, definitely type in the chat box. Let us know if you have any questions as we go along. We're really eager to solve your problems and to find out what you're looking for today. So I just want to show you a few of our customers that we've been working with over the past couple of years. That I've been working with. We do things from furniture to pasta, and this would be food manufacturing. So lot codes. We're definitely going to get into lot codes and traceability today. A cabinet company, which is pretty surprising, another food manufacturer, 2 cookie manufacturers, a orthodontics office, and KPI Ultrasound, which does medical equipment. So we really have a wide scope of customers that we work with and can help out with very unique problems. And each industry comes with a very unique issue and skill set, and each of those needs to be accounted for. So what we're going to do today is kind of show you what is general and what things can be accessed through all of them, and what might be a little bit more specific. And I'm going to dive into those a little bit. And so if you have a specific industry that you're interested in, definitely type in the chat box and let us know, and we'll make sure that we account for that as we go through as well. So first off, what should you track? And this seems like a pretty simple question, but you'd be surprised. Like there's so many problems or so many products that come through any business. I mean, from your actual finished goods, the raw materials, and staples. I mean, you could be talking about your paper clips and shipping supplies, your packaging material, things like that. So my general rule is I try to track something that has an intrinsic value that I need to account for. So definitely your sellable product, anything that you have listed online, anything that goes on a sales order, anything that's going to be transferring to your ultimate customer. You want to track that so you can account for that. And that would include your finished goods. Raw materials, as they come in, you want to track that, but there might be some very specific information that we'll get into later, like lots and serial numbers that you want to track as that product comes in and as it moves through your warehouse and your processes. But again, it's just anything with value that you need to track the movement on. As it comes in, is this a $50 component that you need to track as it moves through to see if it gets transferred wrong, if it gets damaged in the process, if it gets created into something else that you want to track further on. All of that visibility comes at a price, and it's, with barcoding, it's a very minimal price because you're going to take your handheld unit, scan the barcode, that's going to enter in the digits, the characters, and just like in the picture here, you can have a very long string of characters, and the longer that string, the more prone they are to human error. So the more things we barcode, the better off we are. The fewer things we track, the faster we are, but the more things we track, the more valuable we are. So continuing on to the things that you should track, that we had talked about lot numbers. So we can take from your raw material, take the lot from that raw material, and as you produce it into a finished good, track that lot move into that new lot, and then be able to tell you through traceability reporting who had it at each stage of the way, if that's in multiple finished goods, if that finished good came from multiple areas, forwards, backwards, be able to tell you all of the products in between, who has performed any of the movements. If, for instance, you're doing something that's temperature graded, you could tell if it was on the dry floor for too long by looking at the traceability on that particular lot. Serial numbers takes it to a whole nother level and is like ultra specific. So where lot is a group number for a group of items, let's say you have 12 heads of cabbage and you want to track each cabbage as it comes through, the serial number would be either each cabbage or even each leaf on the cabbage. So a serial number is very useful in things like electronics, where you're going to have a serial number per component, either on a chip, a board, the earpiece. Let's say you have a Bluetooth headset, might have a serial number. It's also very interesting when it comes to cellular phones. The reason being is because you often have things like a MAC address and maybe something else that you want to track. And one thing that we do is we let you track 3 of those items. So you can track, maybe 3 lot numbers, 3 serial numbers per item. And that's given people a lot of flexibility, especially in like the flooring industry, where you're going to have an actual lot, you'll have a roll number and some other things that gives you a little bit deeper dive into the specifics on that product, because you want to be able to match that product. If a customer comes back and says, I need 10 more feet, you want to make sure that it came from the same color lot to make sure that it matches the customer's floor. Expiration dates is another really great example and a very key piece. With the pharmaceutical industry, we do a lot of things with let's say pharmaceuticals, various drugs, and we want to make sure that as those go out, we want to make sure that those have the right shelf life on them. So as we come in, we put in an expiration date, and you can do reporting to say, show me the items that are going to expire this month and take those off the shelf. And so expiration dates are a huge component of this. So if any of you guys have had an issue with this where you're working with expiration dates or serial numbers, definitely let me know. I'm very curious to hear how you solve some of these problems. Another thing that's very interesting on tracking, and this isn't a more general term, is what we call dimensions. And that can be physical dimensions like length, width, height, and weight. And that'll give you an idea of like what that product looks like, which is very valuable when you go to ship it. You can take that information and create a much easier shipping document out of. There are other things like size and color, where you could take, you can say, let's say this is a green t-shirt size large, and you want to have one item number and have that translate and know that if I order a large green t-shirt, it's going to be item number 123. From there, one thing that is probably my favorite is line profile color. I like taking things and breaking it down into more meaningful value. So the product line would be maybe my West Coast products. The profile might be, let's say, Star Wars t-shirt, and the color could be green. And then I can do a lot of meaningful reporting based on the sales and velocity of those items. So I know in the future what I need to produce based on the velocity of those items through my warehouse. Now, next we wanted to look at how do you want to track it. This, again, it seems like a very simple thing. We want to track it in the system, but when we really break it down, I think this is where we might lose a lot of people, just because they might not have considered these things. So this is an awesome training opportunity, and something that we work with our clients a lot with, is really defining how that wants to be tracked through your warehouse and through your business practice. So from the detail level, bin locations, and we'll get into that in a second, because that's a very interesting one that I think a lot of people haven't thought of yet. Pick path. I worked for a big food distributor for a long time, and our pick path was fairly considerable, and we have about 97 people at night doing the picking. So in a situation like that, you need to make it as efficient as possible. So I was actually the slot coordinator. I went through, and it was a warehouse that looked very similar to this, the picture on your screen, where you'd have 50-pound bags of flour on the floor. You'd have maybe some slightly smaller items above them that you could still reach and pick from. And we had to take into account certain things like like I said, the velocity, the movement of it. You'd have to take into account the weight. You want to make sure that nothing heavy is up high so you don't hurt your pickers' backs or cause an injury. You want to make sure that as you go through the pick path, you're building a pallet that's being shipped out to your customer that's going to be sturdy and isn't going to tip over or break something down at the bottom. The other good thing about a pick path is by determining how you want to move through it, you're making that picker's efficiency way more valuable. There are certain industries where you're going to sell maybe 2 to 3 items per sales order, and for that, being able to move from the dock to that pick location and back quickly, it might be more important. Where I'm going to be putting, let's say, 100 items on a sales order, that means I'm probably going to go through most of my warehouse. And you want to set something up that's just kind of like the grocery store, where you go down one aisle, back the other way, up the other way. And in so doing, you're going through the most valuable stuff first to your slowest moving stuff last. And then if you need to, you can skip an aisle, and again, saving your picker a little bit of time. And how to organize that. So when you look at it, you know which side, you know exactly where in the warehouse that is. Another huge thing is multi-warehouse. So if you have multiple warehouses, making sure that everything's arranged in data-wise, so that when you look at a location or details on an item, you know exactly where that product's at, because that becomes very meaningful. Am I selling more of this product out east or out west? And then know where to put that. If you're selling 80% of a product out from your west coast, then stocking it on your east coast might not be a good idea. You might want to take a look at, let me remove this from my east coast manufacturer, ship it out of west coast, and then save that money or replace it with something on the East Coast that the East Coast sells more of. The last one I wanted to bring up was what we call direct store delivery. And if anybody has this situation, I'd love to hear from you, because it's one of our favorites. This is something that we sell with QStock as a completely separate module. But it has a very powerful tool with it. It allows you to take product out to, or send a delivery person out to a customer with a handheld device, be able to create credits based on things that you're bringing back. So let's say you have a particular, in Santa Cruz pasta is actually a really good example of this, where something might be expiring within the next day or two. He's going to bring that back, create a credit for that customer of that product that didn't sell, and then he's going to create an invoice and stock the product to fill the shelf. And at the end, he can print out a receipt from his hip pocket that will show the credits, the debits, allow him to sign the screen, so you have that signature capture, and print something out right there. Then when he gets back in, he can sync that up. I mean, it's not too difficult to set up a real-time sync with the wireless services and things like that. But it allows you to, while you're in the field, do all the things you need to and completely eliminate that carbon copy receipt. So direct store delivery is a very interesting piece, and when you tie it in with a warehouse management system, that just expands the capability. That means I can load a truck with inventory, and then that person can sell only the stuff within that truck. So we can tell him if the lot number is correct or incorrect. We can make sure that detail is captured all along the way. So that's something that can be very important to a business, making sure that the lots that they deliver to a customer are correct, making sure that they have that traceability forward and backwards, and be able to make sure that, like, as they go to their customers, they're viewed seriously because they have those electronic devices that make you look like a really big business because you're doing everything electronically, that you're capturing all this data, that you're able to provide them with an invoice right there on the spot, and that you're able to reproduce it later. So I'm going to move on to the next one, which is a little bit deeper dive into bin numbering. And this really depends on your business. So you can definitely have a solution or a warehouse where maybe you have a large area, and that makes sense to have a particular bin there. And so we call it like mix one. And we definitely have customers like that, and that we've suggested doing this because as you add detail, it doesn't really add value for them. Other customers, and this is the way I usually set things up, is I like to divide things down so that as you move down the bin numbering scheme, you get a deeper dive into exactly what or where that product is. So mentally, I can have a picture of that warehouse in my head, and as I read this bin number, I can know exactly where I need to go to. And so let me break that down real quick. So in a warehouse, you're going to have multiple aisles, and so I usually start with the aisle because that's one of the most general. Sometimes we'll have a zone as well. Let's say if you're a food manufacturer, you might have a dry area, a cooler, and a freezer, or maybe a temperature area where you have 32 degrees, 34 degrees, 36 degrees, and so on. And you know, that which happens a lot with produce. So you can add a number in the front to designate a zone. And then you go to the aisle and you get a little bit more specific. And then the bay, and we usually do 2 characters for this, so even if it's bay 1, you do 2 characters. It makes it a lot easier for the reporting and even for viewing. So we'll say bay 13. So just based on my warehouse, I know that 13 is always on the right. So okay, so it's going to be on the right-hand side. And then when I go to that bay, which is right between 2 uprights, so that's really what a bay is between 2 uprights in that shelving system. I can go up to level 4, and then the place B, which would be in the middle. Let's say it's A, B, C. I know exactly where that product's at. So having a little bit more detail can give you a lot more value if you have a larger warehouse. If you're just burning through product and you're not really stocking it, then a more general term might be more valuable for you. So you definitely want to, when you go into looking for a warehouse management system or an inventory control system, what's meaningful for your warehouse and what's meaningful for your business. You want to make sure it's as valuable and as useful as possible for your situation. So if you have any questions or any, I'd definitely like to hear how you're doing bin numbering now, or if that's something you've been looking at, because a lot of times when you're in a warehouse, you tend to know where everything is. So creating a numbering scheme at the onset might seem redundant because I know that all of my let's say Bluetooth ear sets are over on aisle B in the middle because that's where I always keep them, that's where I put them when I receive them, things like that. But when you go to a system, you need to be able to break that down and put it into a meaningful way so that, well, you might know it, the person that you onboard, 6 months from now during the Christmas rush can quickly pick that up. So what does warehouse management look like? Well, there's 3 critical areas. So at the very beginning, the product's going to come in, and that's usually done on a purchase order. You can also have returns. You can have assemblies, so you're doing an assembly entry. But generally, that will come in on a purchase order. So you want to make sure that as you bring product in, it's following whatever your business is doing. There's a lot of instances, I've worked with manufacturers, and they need to, they do assemblies. And when they do assemblies, they want it brought into one specific area. And then from that area, somebody else does the put away. And I kind of like that operation where you separate the designation of duties. That makes it very clear where everything's coming in, where things are going, and it makes it very easy for a manager to go back and look and see what happened. The other part, the second part, is really what happens within the warehouse, and that's the direct moves. That's I'm moving it from A1 to C3. The cycle counts or adjustments. And just as a side note, I want to talk about cycle counts a second. Oftentimes we use the term cycle count, but what we're really talking about is a full inventory count. And the difference is the cycle count allows you to keep performing your business operation as normal. It doesn't stop your business. When you do a full inventory count, you want to make sure you're not really taking sales orders, you're not shipping product, you're not receiving product, you're basically stalling your business for the duration of that time which you're going to be counting. So you definitely want to find a system that allows you to do cycle counts to count product as it's moving through your business so that you can make sure that you're keeping your inventory up to date in a very effective manner. So, and we can dive a little bit further down if anybody's interested in cycle counts, and we can dive into ABC counting and things like that, which really takes that to another level and makes you hyper efficient. The other thing I wanted to talk about is adjustments, because we're doing things like moving product around. Oftentimes we'll have a chance where we damage a product. And when we damage that product, we need to account for it some way. You can do a number of different types of adjustments to pull it out. You can have one generic one. I tend to break things up into the actual action that they're performed. So as a manager, I can look back and I can see how much product I've damaged over the course of a year. Or another interesting scenario is I was working for one company that did a lot with samples. So a large portion of their business was taking samples and shipping it to distributors so they could put it on their showroom floor. And in so doing, we wanted to account for that. We wanted to take things out as a sample transaction so we can see how that looked. And we used certain codes in the description. So we could say, I sent this distributor X amount of samples, and this is how much business I got back from them. So, this is another case where a little bit more detail gives you a very powerful understanding of a business process from the back end using reporting. And then the last one in the process product is your work order. So I'm going to take a raw material, I'm going to take that raw material, perform work on it, and at the end, I'm going to get a finished good. So I want to make sure that that work order will account correctly for the decrement of my component materials and the increment of my finished good. So you really want to dive into these things as you're defining your business process for whatever system you're looking at. And then finally, we're going to wrap it up with, as the product leaves, generally that's going to be a sales order, but that could be any number of things. I know at least one customer that's doing that sales, instead of a sales order, they're using an adjustment to say that it's being used at a customer's location, and at that time they're doing an adjustment to a consumption account, which hits the cost of goods sold. So you can really open up how you do your business and use these tools to really find something that manages the inventory for your specific situation. So one of the big parts that comes up is customizations. There's a lot of times when a company will come in and have just like a little bit of variation and that they want to have something new. And that could be as simple as, and generally it's just a report. They want to see data in a new and meaningful way. And that makes it really easy. The way that QStock is set up, we try to make getting the data out one of our priorities. The other type of customization is where there might be a functionality gap. So what's the delta between your process and the standard functionality? You want to find out, if there is, let's say like in the last example, you are not creating a sales order, but your product is leaving your warehouse. So how do we make that happen? How do we accomplish the same goal? And usually that might come with like a customization, but if you want to make sure you find something that closely matches your business process to minimize the customizations. And there are actually some industries where customization is almost mandatory as sort of a status symbol to say that, we got this, we needed to customize it, and that's actually more common than you think. All right, now why do we track it? Now, I've kind of been highlighting on this reporting piece all the way through because it's a very dear close friend of mine, because you want to know not only how much do I have and how much is it worth, you want to get a little bit deeper, like when and where did this product come in? Who received it? Who put it away? Who moved it? Who was the last person to touch it? So if you are walking through your warehouse and you see damage, you know where that product was, you know who performed the last action on it, and you can track that down. And it's also where and when did it go out, so you can have that traceability, that view for your end customer to get into some certain industries. Like for instance, we've helped customers get into Costco, Whole Foods, things like that. The FDA doesn't really require do stringent requirements on the manufacturer as much as they do on the last mile. So those companies like Costco and Whole Foods are going to be very cautious to make sure that you can, as a manufacturer, can produce the traceability reports, that you can say, if they come back and say, we have a product with this finished good, with this lot code, I need to know that we're not going to get this product anymore. Show me all of the locations of this on your shelf, all the things that's come in, and let's dive deeper into it. Let's find which raw material might have been causing it. They want to have that visibility so that they can offer their customers the very best customer service. And so you want to make sure on your inventory control side that you can answer those questions, that you can confidently say, you know what, I'm comfortable saying I can get this for you in 5 minutes. And we try to over deliver on the reporting side to make sure not only can you get the information quickly, but we almost give you too much information where they have so much information that every question is going to be answered, that they can get the problem resolved as quickly as possible. So, and then keeping on the why, the data, this is really, really important. As product gets moved through, you want to make sure that you're almost the champion of it in your warehouse. I don't know if you guys have had this situation, but if you have, definitely let us know in the chat box. But if you take in and are using poor management processes on the beginning side as you're doing the receiving, maybe not really tracking where you put it, not scanning every step of the way, at the end of the day, you don't know where that product is. So what we tend to term that is garbage in, garbage out. If you don't do the work on the front end, you're not going to get the results you want on the back end. But by being that champion in your warehouse to show them how important it is and how seriously you take it, you can take that situation, make sure that everybody's doing things right, put your very best people on the receiving end, because that's the really important part, is making sure that the product gets into the right spot, so that when the picker comes through, it's exactly where he put it. It's exactly the product he's expecting, and your customer's going to open that box, and it's going to be exactly what they ordered, and it's going to be, you're going to impress them with how quickly you were able to provide it. accuracy and efficiency really comes from barcodes. There's we get asked a lot about RFID, and it's a very catchy term. It has a very specific purpose, and it's not really for your everyday warehouse. The reason being, it's a near field. So what that means is I'm going to take my scan gun, and it's going to, as I scan, it's going to open it up to everything within a radius. So it's going to tell me everything that's within like 5 to 10 feet. But what I'm really looking at is I'm trying to scan this one box to say I'm picking one of this item. So that really helps out to have a barcode. So what we might like to do in that case is use that barcode and you get the lot number, serial number, any other information on there, and go through that way. For the RFID, that's really where you're going to have what we call true automation, where you're going to have like robots, you're going to have a track, and as the product moves down this track, the RFID is going to determine what it is and what to do with it, and it's going to send it to different stations to have work performed on it. And we at MSA have definitely done this, and we've used QStock to help solve a couple issues with getting into JCPenney's and making sure their product was RFID'd before going into a large box retailer. So we can definitely do that. More than likely, we'll recommend barcoding. And then the last piece is checks and balances. And this is that cycle counting piece. You want to make sure that between the time that you bring in the product and it goes out, to keep the reporting fixed and true, you want to occasionally go through and just do a check. And this is going out to a cycle count and making sure that if I expected 5 widgets in the bin, there's still 5 widgets in the bin. And if there are 4, we want to make that adjustment and move on. And that way, when we go to pick it, if somebody who's asking for 5, we tell them to pick 4 from this location and 1 from somewhere else, instead of telling them to pick 5 from this location. We want to make it as easy at the pick process as possible, so you can get your product to your customer quickly and effectively and accurately. So I'll just dive in a little bit to that A, B, C cycle counts, because a lot of your product you don't need to count every day. You want to count your highest moving, most valuable items often, let's say once a week. You want to count your medium items, which you call our B items, maybe once a month, and maybe your slow items or seasonal items once or twice a year. So we just want to make sure that everything's kept up to date, but we don't want to use our labor on things that aren't meaningful for the business. So introducing cycle counts is a great first step, and once that's completed, we can set up a cycle count schedule where you can sort of define where that percentages lies. I want to count my top 5%, top 1 or top 2% every day, every week, things like that. So we can definitely help set that up. Now, what does this look like if when you go to do an installation? So with QStock, one thing that we do is we do some work ahead of time, getting those warehouse bins configured, set up. We work with you to help define that, help set up those rules, those numbering schemes. And then we load that in. We grab what we call a min and max, and that helps us determine what your reorder points are going to be for your items. So if you have that, we can help you define those. We'll load users and role security, enable the bins and product. We want to make sure that those are labeled and barcoded so that when we do go live, it's a very quick process. So as soon as you put a barcode on something, you're adding accuracy and you're adding efficiency. And by scanning everything, you make sure you have the right stuff in the right spot. And then lastly, we want to make sure you have Wi-Fi coverage in all of the areas. Everything's done via handheld, so we want to make sure that that handheld can communicate. So installation and configuration, we go through, we install our programs, the QStock inventory itself, the integration to your Intact environment, and then the QStock mobile onto the handhelds. And then we'll go through, we train your super user, your champion, within your house, and we help that user train the rest of the staff. So we want to make sure that you have one person there that can answer 80% of the questions, and if you have any issues, of course, or any other questions or want to add functionality, customize a report, anything you guys want, even if it's, hey, we're going to add another 20,000 feet. What should we do for, how should we move the product? How should we do this? So we can get that answered and help you train your staff and show you the best rules that we've found in doing this for the last 10 years, since '96. And the go live, you're going to do a full inventory count to bins, which will load the system with all the information. And then we'll be available via remote support and be able to help you out with things like that. I do have a question. Where does the data reside? Is it in the cloud or a local server? And that would be in the cloud. We do have on-prem and cloud-based solutions, so it's depending on what you're looking for. For Intact, we do cloud. Excellent. So with that, so if you want to get more information, or what we really recommend is we'll set up a discovery call where we work with you through your business process, go through each of those stages that we define to really map out how the inventory comes through and what that looks like in your system, what that looks like in your financial system, to make sure that we match up with those business processes. And then we'll cater a personalized demo to you so that we show you the parts of QStock that are relevant to your business. Obviously, like many software packages, there's, we could spend hundreds of hours going through each and every checkbox, but we really want to show you what's relevant to your business and show you how that data moves through and make sure that it hits every requirement that you have. So if you'd like to, definitely head over to QStockInventory.com. You can call Kim Wilson at 408-252-9000, and we can set up that discovery call and demo and really help get your business really streaming along and help you find that reporting that you need. And again, you can't ship what you can't find, so we want to make sure that you can get all the data, have finger point accuracy exactly where your product is at any given moment. So I'd like to open up the floor to any questions that might be out there.
Great, Justin, thanks. Got another one that came in. Does your software print labels?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we sell label printers. We do sell the labels as well. From the handheld, you can print labels, so from the receiving dock, as products coming in, if it's not labeled from your vendor, we can, from the handheld, generate a label for you to sticker that product with. So as the person's putting it away, it's going to be labeled, so when the guy goes to pick it, it's quick, it's fast, and efficient. The other thing there, too, is you can print the rack labels. We do a couple different sizes so we can make sure that we match your business as much as possible.
Great. Oh, go ahead, Keith.
And Justin, this is Keith. Back to the question that was asked about where does the data reside, and you answered that it is in the cloud. But you also might talk just a moment about the system where it would reside. I know with your full integration with Intact, as an example, the final inventory information actually resides back in the ERP system, and you might just talk about that process a little bit.
Sure. Actually, that's a really good point. So one thing that we really like, especially with Intact, is that we're using the ERP's methodologies to make these transactions. There's other inventory control software that will do inventory adjustments to do these things. If as a product comes in, they make an adjustment in, and as it goes out, they make an adjustment out. We're going to take that purchase order that you create in Intact, bring that down into QStock, and keep that in sync. So as you add items, the QStock version is going to keep up to date. If you change quantities, things like that, we're going to receive it, and as soon as we receive it and say receive complete or receive, that person's done, we're going to create a PO receiver in Intact. So those two are actually going to be tied together. So in Intact, you're going to be able to look at your purchase order. If you click on the History tab, it'll bring up all the related documents, so you can see what PO receivers there are that are attached to it. So we flow that back up that way. And similar with the sales order, we're going to bring that sales order into QStock. Again, keeping it in sync for changes. We're going to allocate the inventory and then pick that product, and we're done. We're going to create generally just I mean, you can do shippers and things like that, but we'll normally create an invoice. So again, tied to that sales order, so everything's tied together. If we do an inventory adjustment, we're going to use the inventory adjustment decrease and inventory adjustment increase in Intact. So you can see that. We're also going to tag that this particular transaction came from QStock. We're going to add the user onto it and things like that. So if somebody's sitting in the office upstairs, they see, some transaction that's, kind of large, they're concerned, they can see the data that they need without having to open QStock to get into it. So we try to give as much visibility in Intact as possible as we're doing these things, because we use the Intact methodologies, that PO receiver, that invoice. That's where Intact is doing those inventory decrements and moving the values and the quantities. So we use those tools to keep everything in sync.
Great, Justin. Thanks. The next question, what kind of barcodes should I use?
No problem. So a barcode is kind of interesting. It's sort of like if you're in Microsoft Word or if you're typing an email, you choose a different font, and that's basically what a barcode is. It's just a different font that a specific reader might be looking for. So there's a number of them that are pretty general, and most barcode readers are going to pick up a large group of them. I always recommend code 39 full ASCII, and that's CODE, just like code, the number 39, and full ASCII means it's going to include special characters like parentheses and dashes and like some special things just in case. I usually recommend, actually I always recommend taking out parentheses and special characters from item numbers because it makes it difficult down the road. But if those already exist today, you want to make sure that your reader can account for that. So we usually recommend code 39 full ASCII. That will work with, I would say, 98% of the devices out there.
All right, great. And I think the last question, if anybody else has questions, feel free to put them in the question box, and we'll continue to take these. How much does it cost? Always a biggie.
It's really, it's always a big one. So it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Like, we have various modules, and we want to make sure that each package is set up to offer the best solution for that particular customer.
Okay, great.
And Justin, that's where we really want to be sure to give the right information to each individual user, so they're welcome to either call you guys at those at those numbers and email addresses that were put on, or certainly we at BTerrell Group are happy to provide that, directly with customers and work between the customer and you guys, either way that the customer prefers. But I do really appreciate you sharing that, and obviously in a webinar like this, that's the reason you don't put pricing, because we don't know the exact situation that everyone would be looking for.
Yeah, and there's some, and when I say per user per month, I mean, and that's why we want to get together with the client and find out, what their exact needs are, because that's obviously not for everybody in their organization. That's, we try to keep it to the people that are actually using the product, and we go by a concurrent licensing model. So it's only the people who are logged in at once. So if a customer has 10 users and 5 are on the day shift and 5 are on the night shift, then you only need 5 licenses, because during the day you're going to consume 5, and at night you're only going to consume 5.
Great, Justin. Okay, thanks. Well, we're getting toward the end of our time today. Justin, would you mind switching the slide, please?
Sure.
Justin, thank you so much for educating us on how QStock inventory can help us to better manage our business by managing our inventory. Very great information. Really appreciate it. So you guys know this is one of a series of webinars where we feature BTerrell Group partners whose solutions may help you increase the efficiency of your business. In March, we're going to be talking about the differences in the similarities between both Intact, which we've talked about today, and Sage 300 ERP. Both of these are solutions that we at BTerrell Group recommend and implement for our customers depending on your individual situation. So be sure to look for details in your inbox in the next several weeks. And if you would advance one more, please. Thanks so much for attending. Here's the information for the folks who are on the call today. Feel free to contact us or them at any point. We'll also be sending out links to the slides and the recording of this within the next several days as well. So feel free to share with any colleagues as you see fit. If you would advance one more. And lastly, when the call is ended, we've got just a quick 3-question survey to let us know how we can improve our webinars going forward. These webinars are for you, and so we absolutely appreciate your attendance and anything you could do to help us improve. Thanks again, everybody, for attending, and have a great rest of the day.